there has always been a part of myself that's just a little shut off to men. Like I don't necessarily trust them 100%.
Well, I'm a man and I don't either.
Right.
So, I'm just saying.
Present and future you with actress Danielle Monet Truitt as she dives into the beautiful complexities of life's journey through real, transparent conversation. All the women I've been made me into who I've become.
Hey y'all, it's Danielle Monet Truitt. Welcome back to another episode of All the Women I've Been podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in every week, liking, subscribing, sharing. Our little community is growing and it makes me so happy. So today I have one of my very special friends. His name is Hosea. You might know him as Malik from The Game. He is a writer, producer, director, actor, and he also has something else coming up that we'll talk about during the podcast episode. But can't wait for you guys to hear our very inspiring and loving conversation. Hosea, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're so welcome.
So the podcast, obviously, it's called All the Women I've Been. However, I like to have the brothers join us from time to time. Okay.
Thank you.
It was funny is I didn't mean for like all of the guests to be people of color, but first season and second, it ain't nothing but black.
Never black. Wait a minute, but you didn't mean for all of them.
Right. You know how black I am. I didn't do it on purpose though. Like I didn't do it on purpose, but I realized I was like, oh, it's just all people of color. And at some point I might have the others on, but right now it's just us. It's you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway,
colored bunch,
right?
Colored batch of episodes.
Right. So yeah, I'm super excited to have you here. I was thinking about how we met. I remember I was invited to dinner for, I think it was Sheldon's birthday. I think it was at Catch. Yeah.
Was it his 40th or something?
It might have been.
It
might have been. Oh,
Yeah.
So I came and you were there. And there was somebody else. I don't remember who it was. But that was the first time that I actually got to meet you. And we ended up hanging out all night, went to another spot. It was really cool.
Fast friends. Yeah.
Yes. And then I think you came to my show, my play. And
brilliant show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we connected because you were doing your show.
Yes,
and so I got to work with you and help you on your show, which was fantastic. And the thing I loved most about your play was it was the first time, I felt like it was the first time you were like taking a chance to be more vulnerable about, it's like you were sharing about your experience, but through another story. Yeah. And it just takes a lot of courage to do that and to perform solo in general, like as actors or whatever. Right. So I was just so proud of you and, just got to see that process or whatever. And then since then, we've been friends. We keep in touch every now and then, but I follow you on social media and I just know, I feel like starting with that play kind of sent you even on a further like personal healing journey or whatever. So 100%. I just want to talk to you about, that. But before that, I wanted you to tell us like how you got started in acting and like, your career, where you're from and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, that was an introduction, so thank you. I'm like, should I say something? Because I'm glad we're going back to that because it's a really pivotal part of my life and my growth, as you said. So I'm glad you got to see that. It's very interesting that you could see that from the text of our lives and the photographs and just in taking things, because I never said anything, but you got it. Yeah. Right. So I moved to California about 25 years.
Oh,
wow. Wow. It was right before Y2K. I know it's a lot as I'm aging myself, but which is great because I love aging. So,
yeah.
And so I'm from Montgomery, Alabama, small town. Now, are you familiar with?
I am. I've never been there, but I know all about it.
Yeah.
Civil rights.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a little boy from Alabama, Montgomery, specifically, and always wanted to be an actor since I was a kid. We I didn't think that my family was lower class in any way. We was just like love, and we got what we needed, and Jordans were expensive for everybody at that time.
Right.
All asking for $100 for our parents and stuff to get them. So
Right.
I just didn't really know what the economic status of my life was then. But it turns out we were actually lower class.
Right.
And my entire dream was to be an actor from watching Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live. And our TV was a wooden TV. It would sit on the floor in my grandmother's house, and I would sneak and turn it on after they went to bed because Saturday Night Live came on really late.
Right.
And so what I know now is that those were reruns, because by the time I was born, Eddie Murphy was actually off the show. But they did the same thing that they do now. They air an episode around 11 something, and then the new episode airs around 12 or whatever. And so I was watching the reruns. But anyway, so Eddie Murphy was my bright and shiny star to becoming an actor, and then Will Smith. And then I just got the courage after I turned 17 to do it.
Love it.
Didn't know what I would do, how I would make it, or if I would make it. But by the grace of God, through a series of events at such a young age, I survived and eventually started to thrive.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be an actor, didn't know how I would do it. But when I got to California, I didn't know that I would be in the wrong city. I was in Ontario, California. I mean, I said Alabama, so I thought all I needed to do was come to California, right?
Yeah, everybody, even us from Northern, I ain't gonna lie, I'm from Northern California, but in my mind, all of Southern California was LA.
LA, right.
And then you find these places to live, you're like, oh, this is reasonable, and then you realize like, oh,
you way away from where I want to be.
Right.
And so about 4 years into, it could have been a little longer or even less, to be honest, because at that time I'd experienced like a great deal of trauma and things that I know now to be very unhealthy for a young man alone in a city, in a state like California. So by the grace of God, about 4 years after I got here or so, I actually started working, which is pretty quick. Yeah. Now I know that it's very quick. Yeah. But 3 or 4 years. And so I got fortunate enough to meet a great agent, and he helped me and, helped shape, groom me, and taught me how to do everything I needed to do. Yeah. Had a great coach early on, she's still here. Her name is Amy Linden. For the people that's watching, if you need a great coach, she's still coaching people. And I would not have been able to book like I did had it not been for her. So. Yeah.
Was the game one of your first jobs, big jobs that you got?
The game was the first pilot that I had to actually go.
Okay. So you had auditioned for some other stuff.
Yeah, for some other things.
It just didn't get picked up.
No. And then worked on some other pilots and stuff, and nothing went. Yeah. So that was my first real, big successful job. Outside of co-stars and guest stars on some of our favorite shows on UPN back then. Right. Yeah. So, shortly after that, though, I did get the game because I booked the game in 2005. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. 20, what is that? 24 year? 20, wait, what is that? What year are we in?
We're in 2024. So that's 16 years ago.
We got numbers all over the place.
I don't know how to do math. I'm not good at math at all. I'm an artist through and through.
But so, that long ago, and here we are today. Yeah. Not to make it about the game, but
no, but there's always one opportunity that you get. There's always one opportunity that you get that's kind of that thing that pushes you to the next level.
Pushes you, yeah.
The cool thing is, I remember when I worked with you on your show or directed your show, both of us were in a season of unemployed, not.
It was bad. It was bad. It was bad.
What's happening? I had tested for a show that I was really hoping I was going to get.
We knew you were going to get that one show.
But then the crazy part is, I'm actually glad I didn't get it because I think it only went.
It did
one season, and it didn't even do what it was supposed to do. So that's the other thing. When you're looking for opportunities and you're like, oh, I really want this thing, and then it doesn't come through. Sometimes you think you missed out, but you really didn't. What is actually for you
It's for
You
you.
literally cannot outrun it.
You can't.
If
And I'm
you
almost
just
willing to say
dodge,
you can't mess it up.
you can't mess it
You
up. either.
cannot F it up.
No, you can't.
Even when you think you can, you cannot mess up what God has for you, because God uses everything in your life. And most often disappointments and failure are the thing that propels us,
The most.
or the thing that when we got to where we wanted to get to, we realized had I not gone through something, I wouldn't have been able to appreciate it.
Right.
This whole system is so magical that God created
Right.
for us.
Now, did it take you time to like dealing with failure, you know, in your life, career? It doesn't just have to be career, but dealing with failures in your life and career, like that mindset is not one that most people have, like just off the bat. It's kind of something you have to learn.
That's right.
So like, how did you come to a place where you were able to like accept the closed doors or the failures for God's best for you and not
Last year. Last year was the year that we learn knowledge, because that's just what human beings do.
Right.
You know, you can't be, I tell people all the time, just by being a human, you are intelligence. Just by being a human, we are the apex predator on this planet. God created it that way.
Right.
That's who we are.
Yeah.
We're the smartest, we're the fastest, and if we're not, we know how to get around things because we built cars,
Right.
but we're just intelligence. That's what we are. So it took me to last year to go through a very, very, very rough year. That so much so that the year that I thought was rough with you was like, oh shit, that's a cupcake. Right.
You're like, oh, that year was prepared.
Yeah, that's light work.
This
Okay.
year, right.
And that year prepared me for last year.
Yeah.
But although some things we go through in our lives, nothing can really prepare us for
Right.
what we're going through,
Sure.
but experience itself, right?
Right.
Last year was the year that I learned that I'm gonna be okay no matter what. And that everything that I've experienced in my life, God uses for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sensitive subjects.
No, it's great. I mean, that's what this podcast is for.
Right.
I love what you said. Like everything that you go through, God uses, and I'm gonna be okay anyway. I think
I'm gonna be okay no matter what.
Exactly. I think when you're navigating life and different seasons of your life, you go through things and you don't think you're going to be okay. Like you really don't. Like
Right.
you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. I don't know how I'm gonna move past this.
You don't see it.
You don't see it at all. But the beautiful thing about God's grace,
Yes.
you know, and just about living in general is that truth that,
Is that-
yeah, I will be okay.
That's right.
All things are working together for
That's
my,
right.
for my good. You
That's
know?
right. I believe if you believe it though,
Well, yeah, you have
Right,
to believe
right,
it. You have
yeah,
to put
you
it
have
into practice.
practice. Come on.
What you were
Yeah.
saying about humans being intelligent and having the knowledge. So if there's one thing to have the knowledge of an experience or something like that, but then you have to put that knowledge to practice.
Yes.
Because if you don't put it to practice, if you don't train your mind and your heart to believe the opposite of what you see, like you would literally have to train yourself.
That's
you have
right.
to train your mind and your heart to believe the opposite of what you see in order for you to have the perspective that you end up having.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I could not have said that better.
Yeah.
And the year that we were saying earlier was a bad year for me. How it prepared me for the year that I was literally my worst year on record. Like when you can name one year, when you live on this planet and you can name one year that was your worst
You're like,
year on the
2023.
2023 was the worst year of my life.
I remember I texted you and you were like, something, you were sick, something happened. It was
Everything happened. almost anything you can think of
I'm
happened.
like, thank God you listened to your body, like, you know,
Yeah.
which is another important, which is a really, we were talking about off camera before we started. We're talking about how we're in our 40s now and you can't breathe without straining something or
Breaking something,
or
pulling
breaking something, right? So listening to your body is even more important the older, you know,
Older
the
you get.
older that you get, you know?
That's one thing too that struck me about adulthood and about manhood was that these aren't things that we talk about. women talk about them to an extent, but the truth is you guys don't in-depthly talk. I grew up around a lot of women.
Yeah.
And I mean a lot of women in my life.
Yeah.
And I have never heard one woman having a conversation with a younger woman saying, listen, your body gonna break down. Your bones gonna ache. You're gonna have aches and pains and things, but you got
weird places and out the blue and
And you have to prepare ourselves and our children and our lives for that. You can't just tell somebody your body's gonna break down. You have to give us the tools to navigate that. But oftentimes our parents, grandparents don't have them tools, those tools.
They
themselves.
didn't have them. Yeah.
So
nobody told them. So as time goes on, the more enlightened we get, we can share with others. It's so funny. The next question I was going to ask you, or one of the questions I'm going to ask you, which I can do it now because you kind of brought it up, which was about the things we don't talk about. And, I know it was like men's mental health month. And I've just been hearing a lot of men recently express how they don't feel like they have a safe space.
Yes.
To open up, to be vulnerable, to share, things, or if they do, somebody shuts them down. So say you're in a relationship, and a lot of men are saying, I will never tell a woman anything about me because if something happens, she's going to throw it back in my face and use it against me. And this is a mindset that a lot of men have that I actually did not realize that they have,
Really?
So I would love for you to expound on your experience with being vulnerable. Do you have a safe space? Do you have people? Do you feel comfortable doing that? Are you the type that just doesn't really say anything? Do you have to? Or I feel like
I think I'm all of that.
Right. Depends.
I think I'm in so many ways. I feel like I am a man that understands and identifies with my feminine side very much so. But then the base of who I am, I often learn that I am a man.
Right.
And I process like men process.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how, empathetic I may be or how sensitive I may be or how, all those things that we attribute to femininity or to a female trait, which are wonderful things. I've realized in my older age that my base thought pattern, how I process is my male brain.
Right.
So it is imperative, in my opinion, that especially men of color, all men of color, it is imperative that you have a place and a space where you feel safe. We do. However, sometimes those places are toxic for us. They are with people who cannot heal us out of our traumas.
And some of them have caused the trauma.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
perpetuate it.
Yes.
But again, like I was just saying about, our moms and being prepared in our bodies, when we're in our groups of humans, we don't recognize what we don't have unless somebody shines the fucking light.
Yeah.
Like you got to go into, I hate to use a light and dark analogy, especially when I'm referencing us, but you have to go into places that don't have light and shine yours.
Right.
Because everything
that's the whole point of light.
Thank you. It's to share it. It's not for you.
In the dark spaces, to illuminate.
That's right. So if we are a culture of people and if we're like-minded as we are, and one of us doesn't journey with new knowledge, then we congregate in these spaces and we share the same rhetorics. So oftentimes we don't grow. I found myself as a Black man being in spaces and places where my peer group and myself, we're not growing. A lot of that is societal too, if you think about it. When it comes to hip hop, it's the most influential music on the planet, right?
And culture.
Culture.
Yeah.
It is a culture. Yeah. If our men in hip hop and women aren't able to grow up, if they're not able to evolve, then what happens is we keep men who are boys emotionally at that stage because they're not growing, because their idols aren't growing, because the people who they look to give them influence, they're not growing, so they don't grow. So I think it's imperative that when we reach a certain stage in a certain place, especially when there's eyes on us, that we grow. Yeah. And it has to be an intentional thing. It cannot be growth within the confines of a set. It can't be growth within just friends in the business or, on video shoots. You got to gain something and reflect that light back onto your community, because otherwise, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly. What is your purpose in your life for? I think the older you get, that's a question if you are growing and if you are self-aware,
Mhm.
that's a question that gnaws at you. What am I doing really with the life that I have?
Mhm.
You know, how am I making an impact?
Mhm.
You know, what is the legacy I'm going to leave? And sometimes it's not that you're leaving this huge legacy for millions of people to know about. Sometimes it's just your children.
That's right.
Sometimes it's just your cousin. You know,
Well,
if you
that's the
don't
one
have,
we
if you
know.
don't have children,
If you
Right.
have kids, we know that that's the direct one. There's no question
Right.
about that.
It
You're
might-
here to impart wisdom into them. That's what your job
Exactly.
is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a good point. And there are so many emotionally immature people walking around in grown-up bodies with grown-up responsibilities
Mhm.
and other
Raising
people
kids.
raising children,
Mhm.
running corporations,
Running corporations. That's
running
right.
the government,
That's right. Okay, we're gonna get on that later.
pastoring churches,
Man.
like, and they're still very young and an adolescent stage inside of themselves.
That's
You know what I
right.
mean? So yeah, I think having a safe space to express, to talk about these things are important. What can Black women do to be more of a support to Black men, do you think?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that a human, I don't, this advice, it permeates to all
To
humans, in my
everybody.
opinion.
Yeah, sure.
Other people are your job. We often live our lives just for us, or we don't care, about anybody else's journey. But the truth is, we're born to be helpmates. The
Yes.
reason why God created us the way He did is for us. We're companions to one another.
Yes, for sure.
There is no difference in us. We are the same. And as soon as we realize that as a race of people,
Yeah.
we can tear down barriers that existed long before you and I, and will exist after we're gone,
Right.
where our brothers and our sisters don't feel valued as human beings.
Right.
And I feel at my core, it's very difficult to teach a human a lesson if they don't feel valuable.
That's true.
I mean, right? How many
Yeah.
times have we not felt valuable, but we can't really learn much in that stage of our lives, right?
Right.
So I think human value, it is imperative that every human being feel that it is absolutely your birthright to be here.
Yeah.
Freedom, and I've said this many a times, freedom, and we've heard it, freedom ain't freedom.
Right.
We're all
Free,
free.
right.
But the truth is, if we have to fight for freedom, that tells us we are not free. You don't fight for the things you have. You don't ask for the things that you have. If you have it, why would you ask for it?
Right.
So until we as a society can see past these small little social and racial norms that we've adjusted to,
Right.
I feel like we'll always be kind of, spinning the wheel ourselves.
Yeah. And it's so much, there's so much, well, I don't feel protected by you. And then and then men are like, well, I don't feel like you listen.
And I don't feel protected at all.
Right. I don't feel
Who
protected
the hell
at all.
gonna protect me? But okay.
Exactly. Right. So yeah, I just think more conversations where there's the opportunity for us to listen to each other's experiences outside of our own experience and say, I might not understand everything, but instead of being defensive, I can't listen if I'm defensive. I can't make any changes. I can't connect with you if there's defensiveness present because I'm blocked off, to it. But I think once I started this podcast, the more people that I talk to, I think the more it even opens my mind and my heart to just accepting. I have a lot of, because of my childhood and the things I experienced with men, there has always been a part of myself that's just a little shut off to men. Like I don't necessarily trust them 100%.
Well, I'm a man and I don't either.
Right.
So I'm just saying.
I don't, and I don't necessarily say I'm a feminist, but I have a lot of feminist ideas and thoughts, At the same time, I'm a Christian. So there's this weird morphing of like my feminist ideas and then the ideas of like when you're in a relationship with someone and like submitting to your husband and things like that, which I completely agree with, but I don't agree with the way people try to say it's supposed to be done. Right. Like I don't
misusing the word.
I don't think they understand what submissiveness is, you know. But because of what I've gone through in my life with men, I have been struggling with the mindset, wondering, do men like women? Not do they love us? Not do they want to have sex with us? Right. And I talked about
how are they attracted?
Right. I talked about this briefly last on another episode. We didn't get into it. But do they like us? Like, do men look at women and say, I value, like we're talking about, I value this person's opinion. I value their insight. I value what they bring to the table. I like their personality. I don't look at their vulnerability or their emotion as an annoyance. Why are you so emotional? Instead of looking at it as an added seasoning to add to the gumbo. You know what I mean? Like, right. Like you can't even make good gumbo with just one ingredient.
Right. You need a bunch of different ingredients, right? And let them simmer. Yeah.
Like there ain't no turkey leg in there. So that has definitely been one of my struggles with feeling like, do men, you know, and this comes from being married, getting divorced, dating, you know, being on social media and engaging in certain conversation. Like a friend of mine has a podcast, and she was talking about how Shaq was like, I'll never tell a woman nothing again because they're going to throw it back in your face type of thing. And so we were all talking about it. And I said, you know, I don't think that's a trait of a woman to throw something back in your face. I think that's just people. Right. Like I know men, I've done something, said something, and in the midst of an argument, they'll bring it up, throw it back in my face. You know what I mean? You really just have to be cognizant of who you build relationship and connection with. That's right. And also, that's a risk you take when you're vulnerable and open. This person might throw it back in my face. You know what I mean? You don't, I hope not, but you don't know. So I just said like, hey, I think it's not just women that do it. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. Them men, they came for me. They told me I was bitter. They were like, you're so bitter. No, that's the kind of men you are around and you date. And just one of them told me to shut the fuck up. Yeah. And I responded and I said, you need a hug, my nigga. Yeah. Right. And as they say, go touch some grass because you are way too wound up. Like, what are you talking? I said, you need a hug. Yeah. Like, you know, and then he didn't respond. He didn't respond again. But I'm just like, what is that about? Like, you know. So anyway, as a man, like, because I don't want to be unfair to men and be like, men don't like women. Because I know there's so many men that do. I know you were raised by so many women. But do you understand the thought, that thought process? I do. Okay.
I think a lot of, because first of all, let me say, I absolutely understand the difference between loving someone and liking someone. Yes, there's a huge difference, and you can love someone but not like them. Yes. People, they find that hard to understand sometimes.
Yes, no, it's true.
I do think that men like women. I know that men like women because I know how you guys mother.
I love that.
Right. So if the mom inherently has taught the boy what I know 90 something percent, I'm willing to say 95% of Black women teach their boys is inherent empathy. Yeah. It's inherent love. It's an inherent kindness. Even when it's rough, it still feels kind. Yeah. Because somehow when I was a kid, an ass whooping made you go to your mama when she was done whooping your ass. like you want to hug.
You're like, I just beat you.
Yeah, I just whooped my ass and now I want to hug you. But and I think that's with boys, like for instance, like you have two boys, so you know what you put into them, even when times are hard, even when things are tough, you know it always comes from love. And whether we want to believe it or not, at our core, the way we were loved on or disciplined by women really it reflects a lot of how we see women in our lives.
Yeah.
But I'll also say this. These little young motherfuckers, you can wonder if they like women. But sometimes I also wonder if women even like women.
Well,
and I'm going to go somewhere with this.
That's another question.
Because it's my absolute wholehearted belief that men treat women the way women set the tone.
Right, you're right.
Everything
I can't
that
argue with you.
every inception of anything on this planet is female.
That's true. That's very true.
We call the earth mother because
Right.
she breeds life.
Right.
So men don't do that. Now, that doesn't discredit our role in
Contribution.
society. Yeah, it doesn't
Right.
discredit anything. But what it does is I think that we've gotten to this place where women, now it's, well, men do it, I want to do it too. And whenever I see that personally, I feel so bad for any woman that says, men do it, I do too. Y'all are the bar. Why the fuck would you want to do what men do? Why would y'all want to do what we do? Why would you want to do what we do?
Right.
But society has damaged us so bad.
Yeah.
There's so many different layers to answering that question that we don't realize, and women don't realize, which also is intentional because I know the way men are. It's an intentional thing to strip a woman of her power. It's an intentional thing to make you guys. So now that you guys believe this lie, some of y'all, y'all around here asking, well, if men do it, then, well, such and such did it. And it's like, no, you guys are the exception to the rule. You guys make the rules. You guys really run the planet.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right.
Every man that's a CEO that a woman wants to be, we all know now from all these men killing themselves and never being happy, and they're all drugged out and they're making hundreds of millions of dollars each year on these salaries now, but none of them are happy. We know now that just because you're the breadwinner doesn't mean that you're the great fucking example.
It doesn't, and it's stressful.
Women were the example, but y'all traded your femininity in for masculinity and for power. And a lot of that is because we didn't do our fucking job.
Right.
Let's be honest. We had to.
Right. And we felt powerless because of being squashed down.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
The things that we do bring to the table and contribute were made to feel like, oh, you know.
That's right.
You're not in the right place. Yes.
Even society, women are just as good as men. But the fact that we have to question that or say that is weird. We're all human beings. Men don't have a special fucking brain.
Right.
We don't.
Right.
I mean, there are things chemically that make us all different in ways, but the core of who we all are is the same.
Right.
None of us are superior to the other. None of us, not any of us. Right. But I would dare to say, in my opinion, in ways women are superior to men.
Well, I definitely say that.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I always tease, like, you know, like if a man gets sick, they're like,
we're the biggest baby. Listen,
right? A woman's like, yeah, I'm sick, but I went and picked up the kids, and did all this other stuff.
Right.
You know, I messed my knee up.
I've been sick for 2 weeks. What's your problem?
I messed my knee up the other day. It didn't stop me. I had stuff to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's just the way that we're fashioned, and I think if we both just encouraged one another
to be our best,
selves,
that's the key.
Fine. Yeah.
Encourage one another to be ourselves, because once you really realize that everything, as you said in the beginning, everything that God has for us is for us, you eliminate the idea that someone will take something from you by being their best self. And that is the biggest trick that we as African Americans that we have is to think that someone else's light, someone else's power, someone else's influence takes away from us.
Right.
It's an illusion.
Like
it's
it's
in
not
your mind.
enough for us all.
Yes, it's in your mind.
There is enough for us.
There's more than enough.
Right.
There's more than enough resources everywhere that God has been. And God has been everywhere.
Right.
And we know God don't make one enough. So
right, exactly.
Abundance of resources. So knowing that at our core, I believe it levels us. You know, humanity needs to be re-leveled. And I pray to God that, you know, nothing tragic has to happen to get that.
Yeah.
But we need a level system where we all think about after tragedies. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you one thing. Well, since I've been on this planet, like after 9/11, I mean, everybody was just loving one another. Right. I hate to say it, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
There was so much love and togetherness. We were all trying to do things to benefit mankind, to help one another. Even after tragedies, think about what we did after the hurricane in Hawaii, how everybody came together to help our brothers and sisters survive and thrive. That's what the fuck life is about without a hurricane. That's what life is about without planes going into a... That's what life is about.
Without a pandemic.
Period.
Without somebody having to die or,
No, we are supposed to be that to each other because life is what's important.
Right.
It's almost like we wait to live, especially as a human race. I would say we wait to live. We wait thinking that things are going to happen to us and come to us in the future. And the truth is the now is your gift. Now is all we have.
Right. Do you know who, oh gosh, it's a preacher. He passed away. His last name was Monroe. I don't know why I can't remember his first name right now, but he said before he died, when he was preaching and stuff, he was like, when I die, I want to die empty. I don't want to be in my casket full of dreams, full of apologies I should have made, full of wisdom that I just never shared. Like, I want to die empty.
Yeah.
I want to give out as much as I can and not take nothing with me,
That's right.
And I feel like if we focus more on that, it would definitely make this world
like much better,
a better place. Mm-hmm. So before we end, what's going on with you now? Like, how's life? Like, do you have anything coming up? Are you working on anything?
Well, what's really good is that when you asked early on, you were like, well, what can we do? You're already doing it. You said, what can we as Black women do? I didn't specifically and directly answer that question.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You're doing it. You're shining your light. But what you're doing here, you're exposing people who may not have the access that you have to a wealth of knowledge. Every person that sits on your couch imparts wisdom into your audience or to your follower or to whoever it is. And we're at this beautiful, wonderful synergy in life where we can actually learn things without having to experience them.
Right.
We can actually go through someone else's experience, listen to it, connect to an emotion or a thought.
Yeah.
Or the way we look, or whatever the case it is, but we can build a connection with someone for free, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing in the mix of all the darkness that exists in social media.
Yeah.
That for somebody like yourself to shine your light and use your light, as I've always known you would do anyway, and continue to do. I'm sure you'll just keep building. But that's also what has inspired me to do the same thing. I told you, I shared with you earlier that I too started a podcast myself that is based off of a talk show that I actually pitched and nobody took it. So I said,
it's for something else.
Yeah. So I said, hey, God, thank you.
You never know.
And well, this format, the podcast format is perfect because you don't have to have any approvals from anybody. You ain't got to wait on no. That's right. So Goodfellas.
Love it.
Which is interesting because I hope we have time because I got to take you back. Goodfellas is the inception started from Good Morning, which you directed by Black. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And it's interesting because you did say that you could see how, in my life that I was shedding a lot of layers.
Yeah.
And I created Goodfellas so it could be a space for Black men specifically to shed our emotions. Okay. So we could ask the questions that we needed to ask in our lives with each other and with, women and other people. And
having the support.
And a safe space.
Look at that.
It's a safe space, exactly what you said. Okay. Because so many times, thank you so much. So many times in my life, I've encountered brothers and myself where, we have a heavy load on us.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing that I also have learned. Every man, every woman has a load. Yes. You might not see it. Some of us are better at hiding our loads than other ones.
Right.
But every single human has their own load.
Yeah.
So imagine not being able to articulate your load.
Yeah.
Because of all of these things that society has told you is not manhood, or your childhood has told you that's not right, that's feminine, don't say that, how dare you, feelings are for women. All of these things that have been programmed into us. Yeah. And specifically, I've noticed there's a difference in culture.
There is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's as much as we all want to, yes, we are all the human race. However, cultures operate different. Therefore, children are raised differently because of it. So we inherently as humans believe different things than other humans believe, but there is one truth, but we all have different truths.
Right.
So it's our job as we go through doors to keep that motherfucker open for the people that's behind us.
Right.
It's our job as we climb the ladder, we have to lift up behind us.
Yeah.
It is an imperative thing because that's what it ain't no what's my purpose. That's the purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
God never gave anybody anything for themselves. If you got it, God gave it to you for you to give away. I guarantee it.
Yes, for sure.
Anything, physically, emotionally, mentally, all of it is to help other people. So I knew that there wasn't a place in the space for Black men to go and to really share our thoughts. There are tons of places and brothers that are doing great work on the internet now.
Yeah.
And, podcasts and talk shows and things like that.
Right.
I want to add to the conversation by giving, my voice, and not just my voice, but other people an opportunity to do exactly what you've done, to share the love and to share the experience and to share the life that we all have lived. Also, I did it for myself. I'm not going to lie. I did it. I did it.
It's very similar to why I started my podcast. This is why it's making me so happy.
I'm not shocked because I know our core. Yeah.
I love it.
It's a selfish thing too. I needed to do it for myself because I have questions. You know what I mean? As a man, I don't want to get emotional about it, but I have questions about life, the things that I've gone through, my future and my now, like everybody else. Yeah. So having a platform that I can actually teach as I grow.
Yes, it's a way to work through your own.
It's a way to work through.
Stuff.
And you said something to me early, like when we talked a while back about this, you said that God put it on your heart. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, now that sounds like direct, specific, intentional purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was like, oh, well, that's what you're doing. But you gave me the words to express it, you know. So the way I explained it was because you saying God put it on your heart, me internalizing that, what that meant for you, and then it shined a light in my life. Okay, well, this is what it means for you, Hosea. This is, a part of your purpose too.
I believe that this is a season where I think God is calling certain people to be transparent enough to heal in front of people. Mm-hmm. And I'm not doing this podcast because I have all the answers. I don't have none, honestly.
Right.
I'm just living life and learning as I go. And now I'm just allowing other people to see me learn as I go and to introduce them to some dope people that I know that are also learning as they go. Whatever you get from this podcast episode, I just pray that you get what you're supposed to get by watching it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's not for me to be like, you need to do this and this and this and this. Right. And I think there's a lot of that in the podcast space. So it makes me happy that there's like a new little group of us like coming in that's just giving people opportunity to see you live life. Mm-hmm. And then through them seeing you live life and share your experiences, then they can have the courage to do what it is they need to do, in their life. And somebody sent a comment or wrote me a little message and just said, thank you for not lying to us. Mm. She was like, everything I've been watching on podcasts and the internet, everybody's lying. Yeah. Like everybody's putting up a facade and acting like they're better than they are. And like they got it together and whatever. And she was like, thank you so much for not lying to us. And I was like, like that, I'm like, okay, that means I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
You're definitely doing what you're supposed to do. And I do think that she's 100% right. And today, and I've said it in a different term, I've spoken to some of my friends and explained it as like life feels like there's an illusion over everything now. Mm-hmm. Like no one's living their real life. And then one of my buddies was like, well, Cat Williams did say it was going to be the year reveal or something. It's funny because it really is. It does feel like right now it's imperative that we give some form of authenticity to young people, especially on this thing, that they're using unsupervised.
Okay. Right.
And that, as we know, is a weapon in and of itself.
Right.
You know how I know it's a weapon? And I like to tell people this every time because I saw recently, you look it up, where Putin and Kim Jong-un said that AI and the internet is the new nuclear weapon. Right. So
they can control the minds of people.
So when you hear great leaders say things like that, for me, it makes me take a look And I'm like, oh, well, it can be weaponized. And that's exactly what a lot of people do with it. So it is our job to, impart some form of wisdom into our people as we go and we grow, so they can too, because this is where they are. So,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you,
I love you very much.
I love you too.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.